Hi, if you're watching this, it's because you were not in class when we did the 3 Mishkan motifs and the exercises afterwards, so you're watching this to get caught up. What's a motif? A motif is something that's repeated more than once in literature or in design or in art. So it's got to be something that appears 2 or 3 or more times. And in looking at the Mishkan, there's a number of motifs that if we pay attention to them, it can help you understand what the architect, designer of the Mishkan is telling us are the important values in life, just as we did with the other buildings that we read earlier on in the year. So in order to do this, you're going to want to prepare your personal Mishkan journal, and which looks like this. Click on the green section and jump down to the area about the Mishkan motifs, because here's where you're going to take some notes. Name of motif, where does it appear in the Mishkan, and which QOLs does it symbolize. You're going to take some notes here for the 3 motifs, and here are your journal entries for when it's time to do journal entries. Okay, so let's start. So the 3 Mishkan motifs. The first thing you'll notice when you look at all the furniture in the Mishkan is that a lot of it is made out of gold. In fact, the table, the golden altar, the ark, and the menorah are all made out of gold. So it might make you wonder, why this use of gold? What's so important? And the answer is that this motif teaches us a number of things. Let's zoom in. When we talk about gold, we're talking about value and what is the most valuable thing to you. And if you want to know what is valuable to somebody, just see what they spend their gold on. So this could be one use of gold. I'm not going to judge. It seems like a good use to me. But maybe this is a better use of gold. And by the way, gold is not just, and this is a tzedakah box, giving charity. Gold doesn't just mean gold or just mean money even. It could be symbolic, meaning your power. So what do you do with your power? Do you do this with your power? Or do you do this with your power? 10 to 12 people combining their strength to save somebody from a burning car. So we have choices that we need to make regarding our gold. Also your mind, and what do you do with it? The same minds that put together, the same type of mind that puts together the technology to lead to mass destruction can also combine their creativity and their technology to develop this. This is a prototype of an exoskeleton developed in Israel to help a paraplegic walk. So again, with your gold, you have to make some choices. You want to make this, or do you want to make this? That's the Ark of the Covenant. Incidentally, where did the Israelites get this gold? God said, this is Exodus, when you go out of Egypt, you're not going to go away empty-handed. Each woman is going to ask from her Egyptian neighbors objects of silver and gold and clothing. So this is their back pay from 400 years of slavery. So you know what? We can be angry and paralyzed by the suffering of the past and just look backwards and be angry about it and only remember and only think about the bad. Or we can take that gold and we can use it to inspire great things, just as the Israelites were in slavery for 400 years, but then use their gold to, use their gold to develop something really amazing, the Mishkan. So it's about using even your difficult experiences for good. So that's the gold motif. In a nutshell, using your blessings for good, whether that's actual gold or money or power or your intellect. It's also that what's inside is the most valuable and holy, and not just things as they appear on the outside. And we know that because in the Mishkan, all the golden furniture is on the inside, while the copper is on the outside. So, you know, they say, don't judge a book by its cover. You want to get to know a book, you got to read into it. Likewise with people, you have to go beyond just their appearances, and also the Mishkan itself. All the gold is on the inside. That is the gold motif. The next motif, I looked at the pieces of furniture and noticed that they all, 4 of them have something in common. The table, the golden altar, the copper altar, and the Ark of the Covenant all have poles. In fact, the Ark of the Covenant's poles are never removed from it, even when it's not being carried at all. So clearly the architect-designer is onto something here. Poles symbolize the second motif, which is portability, because you use these poles to carry things. So when we say portability, what are we talking about? Well, to start with, actual portability, just meaning literally the importance of being able to move from place to place. But more symbolic, we're talking about growing and growth, which is kind of moving through time and moving from one stage to the next. So portability is also about growth. But more important than that is about adapting to new circumstances, using creativity to be able to see an obstacle as something that can be overcome and maybe even growing as a result of it. So portability is moving, adapting, growing, and creativity. And there are the 4 pieces of furniture: table, golden altar, copper altar, Ark of the Covenant. Our third and final motif, noticing the angels face to face on top of the ark, and the face bread. It's actually called lechem panim, face bread. So that's our third motif. It is face to face. So what was the architect of the Mishkan getting at with this face-to-face business? What does it symbolize? Well, let's start with the idea that the space between 2 faces is the most holy place on earth. Where do we get that idea from? The text literally says, which 2 faces, first of all? The text literally says between the 2 kruvim on top of the Ark of the Covenant, I, that's God, will meet with you. In other words, God enters the human world between the 2 faces of the kruvim. It's like a porthole to God's world. There's the kruvim on top of the ark. But also we can understand the symbolic, not just that God literally comes from between 2 statues, but let's understand also which 2 faces we're talking about. Which 2 faces? Maybe any 2 faces. The holy connection of a parent and a child. The holy connection of 2 friends. Maybe even in moments of arguing, as long as the arguing is done respectfully and for the sake of growth, maybe even there, between 2 faces, holiness enters the world. The space between 2 faces, the most holy place on earth. You may also find somebody in the world that you think has nothing in common with you. But then when you look deeply into their eyes, you see your own reflection. In other words, deep within the face of the other is you. Kind of a mirror image. Person to person, we are mirror images of each other, but also people are mirror images of God. God says in Genesis, let us make human in our image after our likeness. So here it is. We have the 2 kruvim on top of the ark. Who are these 2 kruvim symbolizing? Could it be that one of them is actually the symbol of God, the mystery, and the other one is the mirror image of you? Are you the mirror image of God? What does that mean? Well, at Mount Sinai, there were a number of times when people and God mirror each other. Thunders and lightnings, all the people in the camp tremble. Mount Sinai, altogether on smoke, the whole mount trembles. The author is getting at something there, same exact word. Israelite elders saw God and they eat together. The glory of God looked like a fire eating at the top of the mountain. Humans and God are actually mirroring each other. Going beyond that, later Midrashic authors developed that idea. It's recorded as a miracle. Now, I don't think this is intended to be literally true, but to make a point, that when Israel was close to God, the kruvim lovingly turned their faces towards each other and even embraced like a loving couple. And then the curtain would be raised so that the Jews who'd come on pilgrimage, remember the 3 times per year pilgrimage, Shavuot, Pesach, and Sukkot, could see it and convince themselves how much God loves them. In other words, the kruvim are kind of the symbols of Israel and God mirroring each other. So in that sense, a human being can actually look God in the eye. How do you do that? Well, one possibility, if you want to see God, is you'd find the eyes of the other, and you look deep into their eyes, and what do you see within eyes? No, it's not Illuminati, come on. It's the eye of the Creator, the eye of God. And what do you see when you look within the eyes of God? When you see what God creates and you see who God is? You see you. So in that sense, you equals me equals God. So that is the face-to-face motif. Once again, you equals me, we reflect each other, and we reflect God. Okay, so those are the three Mishkan motifs. Now what you do, hopefully you've taken notes here. What is the gold motif? Where does it appear? Which qualities of life? And the prompts when it's time to do the journal entry. Now if you go to the calendar from today, you'll find a link to the Mishkan motif exercise. And there, you can always link back to the video, to the Prezi. And what I'm asking you to do is take all these scenarios and answer these prompts. Which Mishkan motif is represented? Is it shown in a strained or traumatized way, like bad in other words, or is it shown in a healthy, fortified way, good? What phrase was the clue? And if it was strained, if it isn't good, give some advice or a suggestion on fortification, how to make it better. Here are the three motifs, and give it a try. Complete all 10 for next class. Or actually 8, all 8 for next class.